So the next part is me talking about how I feel about institutionalized everything. I really dislike it. What do I mean by institutionalized everything? It's when you have official recognition of languages, different races. Um let's leave it at languages and races. Because in the country I live in, Canada, we have got two official languages, English and French. And we have got two official races, uh, Indian and non Indian. This is Canada, supposed to be a first world country, and these are institutionalized. The laws are put in place by the government of Canada on these two topics. So, um, how do I feel about them? I feel they should be abolished. I think so many of the laws that we're so overregulated in Canada. Everything is regulated to death. We have got enormous telecom companies that are in charge of, well, it used to be telephone and television, but now it's primarily internet. And it's a small oligarchy of companies, which means a small group of companies that have enormous reach, and they are regulated. This system has been around in Canada for a long time. It used to be, well, I still to a certain extent is with transportation. So um, if you want to have an airline in Canada, there's all kinds of regulations about where you can go. In other words, if I want to fly from this city to this city, I've got to go through the regulator. Why? Well, at one point it was to make sure that certain routes between certain places in Canada got served, because the thought was if a Canadian carrier could go and fly between Los Angeles and Las Vegas, USA, that's what they're going to do because they can make more money at it. So the great idea was, well, if you're going to be anyway, that's sort of the idea behind it, is that business is always going to go for the most profit, which means that we're not going to get serviced in this country. It always fails because the people who regulate these enormous industries are usually taken from these enormous industries. And so it's a big palsy wowsy thing where, the public never seems to come out to the better for all these regulations. So having English and French as your official languages, um, at one point it meant that when in the House of Commons, which is Canada's parliament, uh, if someone spoke in English, there would be a translation of what they said into French and vice versa. The indigenous languages, the Aboriginal languages, the Indian languages of Canada are not official languages of this country. And there are immigrants from every other country in the world, every other language, and they don't have official status. But as I said, there are two types of race in Canada: Indian and not Indian. I say Indian, I mean, modern day, it's maybe called Aboriginal or Indigenous, but the law itself on the books says the Indian Act. And it is a racist act. It is institutionalized racism. Apartheid, which was the system of institutional racism in South Africa, has been dismantled many years ago. It was dismantled under Nelson Mandela, who was the first black president of South Africa, and now he's dead, long dead. But in Canada was the model country where apartheid laws came from, the Indian Act of Canada. And we still have the Indian Act. South Africa has passed us by. And still today, people of indigenous descent want to keep the Indian Act. A lot of them do, because they want to be separate. Because there's a lot of trauma having to do with colonization. In other words, when immigrants came from all around the world to Canada and brought their cultures with them, and then the terrible things that were done in the name of religion and suppression of the indigenous people, unbelievable horrors. The other day on Facebook, I saw it posted that some members of one of these Indian bands, First Nations is another word. There's so many other names. I mean, why can't you just stick with it? It's the Indian Act. Now they want to be, I can't keep up with the number of alternate names because it's such a touchy subject. But somebody posted, I heard that members of a certain Indian band were going to get either $90,000 or $40,000 each from the government. And this person said, if you're one of them, here I am, let's shack up. Free money based on race. Even if you're 6 years old, you're going to get a big check from the government. If you're 6 years old, you didn't undergo these horrible brutalities that happened in the past, that happened to their great-grandparents, perhaps. Shouldn't someone have to pay? I'm sorry, the people that did this are long dead. But the people today are still propagating the Indian Act. It can't be dismantled. It's institutionalized racism. The institution is a money funnel in the eyes of many other Canadians. It's a money funnel for Indians to get money. Endless money. And then the rest of the people say, when's it going to end? When's it going to end? The Indian people say, this was our land, you stole it. I wasn't here when all of this went on. I was born here. I was born here. And I've got to still follow along with this history of what happened in this land, and I have to pay because I'm not an Indian. I don't like it. I don't feel like I am responsible for what happened. Am I able to respond? I'm responding now and saying, enough. It's time to dismantle the Indian Act. And as far as the land here, well, we have huge problems with land based upon ownership by moneyed interest in corporations. So yes, we need land reform. Absolutely, we need land reform, which means a lot of these ones that own it based on money, I'm sorry, it's going to have to get redistributed. I sound like a communist or something. Well, a revolutionary. I don't prefer communism. I don't want an ism on the attached to the end of it. I basically want to see planet Earth for earthlings, not for corporations and not for moneyed interests and not for institutionalized racists. We have a long way to go. And who is going to do the work? Are we going to pass it on to our children, our grandchildren? 7 generations later, are they still going to be wrestling with these issues? It appears to me it's going to be that way because there's too few of me and too many of the rest that either want to bury their heads in the sand or it's too touchy an issue. I don't want to deal with it. Or I'm, you know, English, French, or Indian, and I have to have it my way because my ancestors were this way. It's the stupidest, stupidest thing. Intractable problems, institutionalized. Talk about it.